Not only on my channel am I all about promoting good mental health and well-being through upcycle and design, but I'm also all about saving your wallets as well. And today I'm going to show you how you can turn something that's £10 into something that looks like it could be worth £60, if not more. Now, I live near Sidmouth, which is a very beautiful seaside town, and as with all beautiful seaside towns comes tourists, and with that comes very lovely high-end shops to cash in on the tourists that are visiting. And I was in one of these high-end shops yesterday. I was having a little look around and I found these candlestick holders, and they had the really cool candles in that you get at the moment that are all really brightly coloured, and I thought, oh, they'll look great in my house. I wonder how much they are. And I picked one of them up and it was £25 for one candlestick holder. That is something that my bank balance will not like. And then inspiration struck me and I thought, I'm just going to make my own. I'm going to upcycle my own candlestick holders. So then I went to a nearby vintage shop and I found these, and I absolutely love them. And you know what? They were £10 for two, and I think they're going to look absolutely brilliant upcycled. Now, I haven't come up with a firm design plan for these yet, but I do know that I really want to make a red traffic cone to go on one of their heads. Other than that, I haven't really got any further at the moment, but I'm going to turn these into something really unique using really beautiful colours and quirky design ideas so that they're really bespoke and individual. And I'm going to make this tutorial today so that you can adapt my design ideas into your own design ideas and make your own really beautiful bespoke candle holders. So get yourself down, Oxfam, get yourself a couple of candlestick holders, and I will see you in a bit. Now, in any other circumstance, I wouldn't be leaving the house right now, but it's Sunday and I'm acutely aware that the shops are going to shut soon, so I'm going to brave it for you guys and I'm going to go out and get some paint, so I'll see you in a bit. So I made it through the rain, sounds like a Barry Manilow song, and I eventually got to the range and I bought myself a couple of cans of spray paint in some really beautiful colours. So I've just sprayed the candlesticks up so they're looking really vibrant and beautiful, and this is how they're looking. Ta-da! So I'm really pleased with how they've turned out. I've gone for a really vibrant, bold yellow, and then to complement it, I've gone for this kind of dark, duck eggy, bluey, greeny colour, but I think they contrast really nicely together. So when you're choosing your spray paint, it's really important that you choose a paint that works with the surface that you're spraying. So these two angels here are resin, so I've gone for an all-purpose spray paint. In fact, I've gone for Maston. Not sponsored by them, by the way, but there is one tiny problem that I noticed when I got home. And it's more of an error on my part than anything else. When you're choosing your spray paint, don't just choose it based on the colour. Always check to see what the finish is. Because I chose this beautiful yellow in gloss, and I also chose this beautiful dark duck egg blue in satin. And even my 6-year-old commented last night and said, "Mummy, why is one matte and one shiny?" I was like, because Mummy cocked up. But I'm not too bothered, it doesn't matter, and I think they look fab aside from the fact that they're completely different finishes. So the next thing I'm going to do is really zhuzh them up, because I think we can make them a real talking piece. When people come round, they'll be like, "Oh, I like your candlesticks." That's what I'm going for with this. So I had a bit of a think about how I could make these a little bit more unique, and then I thought to myself, these things here, these little kind of bowls that they're carrying to put the candlesticks in, they look a little bit like beer barrels-ish, potentially. And then I thought, what if these guys were off to a festival? Yeah, off to a festival to drink some festival cider with their festival party hats on, maybe blowing some bubble gum, something like that. So these guys, I think they're probably off to Glastonbury. I think they love a bit of Glasto, and make them look a little bit more like fun fallen angels. So I'm going to create a bubble out of Fimo for one of them to give the impression that they're blowing some bubble gum. And then the other one, I have found something a little bit cheeky. I raided my girl's Playmobil and I found this cowboy hat. Now imagine this cowboy hat sparkly pink on his head. I mean, I mean, you don't get more festival than that, do you? So I'm going to do that. So I'm going to spray this up in a glittery pink. I'm going to create some pink bubblegum for this one. I might add some extra bits as well to give them a real Glastonbury feel, and then see how they turn out. So I'm going to start off by making the bubble for the bubblegum. So I will see you in a second. Now, what I find when I'm crafting or making anything, especially when it's quite time consuming like this, is it really forces me to focus on the task in hand. And you tend to forget about all of the other issues that you've had during the day, because I'm a massive ruminator. I'm one of those people that tends to overthink things, and then within the space of 10 minutes, it's turned into this massive catastrophic thing, and nothing bad has happened, but in my head, it's like worst case scenario. So I really find that by focusing on a craft like this with the Fimo, it really helps me to focus my mental energy into the making process, rather than focusing on all that really rubbish, unhelpful rumination that makes me feel really anxious and not great at all. And this is actually quite hard, so I'm actually having to exert quite a lot of physical energy into this as well. So it's a win-win. I'm kind of getting a kind of a cardio workout in the loosest sense of the word, but I'm also getting to focus on the creative process as well, and not my unhelpful ruminations and overthinking. So what I'm doing is focusing on getting a really lovely spherical shape at the front, and then tapering it down so it looks like the bubbles being blown by the angel. And then I'll just attach this with some super glue once it's all cooked in the oven and all sprayed up. I've made the bubblegum bubble now, and then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to hold it against the mouth of the angel. So I've created this little piece here that sticks out. I'm just going to hold it against his mouth and press ever so slightly to create a bit of an indentation into the end of the bubble, so that once it's cooked, when I super glue it on, it'll fit really nicely like a jigsaw puzzle, you see. So the next thing I'm going to do is cook this. So what I don't want to do is lose the shape of my bubble that I've made by putting it onto the tray and then it flattening on one end. So what I've done is I've sprinkled some flour over some foil just to help it cook a bit better and a bit more evenly. And I'm just going to pop my bubble onto the flour so it keeps its shape, and then I'm going to pop it into the oven at about 120 for about 20 minutes, so it cooks through but it's not too hot. You want to cook any polymer clay on quite a low heat, you don't want to go too hot. So I'm going to stick that in now. So I've got my Playmobil cowboy hat here, and I'm just going to try it out on my angel's head to see how it looks. So that is looking quite cool, and I think a sparkly pink cowboy hat is just what this angel needs. Now, I'm not too worried about it being small, because I think it adds to that kind of novelty Glastonbury kind of vibe that I'm going for. So the next thing I'm going to do is take this outside and give it a good spraying over. So I've got this really awesome, very glittery pink spray paint that I'm going to spray my hat in, and I think that this is going to really add to the overall uniqueness of the finished candlesticks. So I'm going to go outside and use this whilst the weather's still dry, and I'll be back in a second with my awesome cowboy hat. I've now sprayed the hat and the bubblegum up in those really beautiful pink colours, and the next thing I do is I want to make my signs for the beer barrels or the cider barrels. So I'm going to take some more of my white Fimo. So this is going to take me a little while, so I'll come back to you in a second when I've got it nice and soft. I've got to a stage now where my Fimo's a little bit more malleable, and what I've done is I've just taken my plastic rolling pin and I've just rolled it out slightly to create a flatter shape. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to cut a couple of strips, which is going to be my sign that's going to go on my cider barrel. So I'm just going to get a sharp knife. Now, one thing you need to remember to do if you're rolling anything like this out is either put a little bit of corn flour on your surface so it doesn't stick, or if you don't have anything, just keep moving it. So roll it a bit like pastry and then lift it off so it's not sticking to your work surface. Otherwise, you'll end up with it completely stuck and then you're going to have to start all over again, which is no fun. So I've rolled it out, I've got it to a few millimeters thickness, and I'm just going to cut some strips out now with my knife. And I don't want it to be too neat because it's meant to be like paper or card, a bit of a sign, so it can be a bit rough and ready. So I'll cut those two strips out like that. And if you don't have anything like my candlesticks and you're just spraying them up, then obviously you don't need to do this at all. But I just quite like the idea of giving them that festival look, like they're off to go and have a good time. So I've got one of my signs cut out now, and I've thinned it down a little bit as well, so it's not quite as thick. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to hold it and bend it around my candlestick where I want to place it, push it in. So I've got those indentations in there. So when I've cooked it, it'll sit really nicely back over those indentations again. And then I'm just going to carefully remove it. And then I'm just going to do the other one, making sure that you keep that bend in there so that it sits really nicely once it's cooked. I'm just going to cut another one out. So I'm going to put these in the oven for about 20 minutes on 120 so that when I take them out, they're still going to be soft and malleable, so I can then bend them onto my cider barrels so they'll sit really nicely. The Fimo is cooked and it's still warm and really malleable at the moment, and when I cooked it I made sure that it had a small bend in it already, so it just means that when it sits against the barrel in a minute, when I attach it, it sits really nice and flush. So the next thing I'm going to do whilst it's still warm is I'm going to get some glue and I'm going to stick it on. So I've got my Gorilla Glue here and I'm just going to move that one out the way, and I'm going to just work out, so I want it to be at the front, so I think it wants to be about here, I think. And I'm just going to put some Gorilla Glue, just a touch, and this is the Gorilla Super Glue. I literally love this stuff, it's amazing, and it just sticks everything pretty much. There's not much that it won't stick. And I'm just going to hold that there for a few seconds and wait for it to adhere, and then I'll just let go and let the glue do the rest. Okay, so that's nice and stuck down. I'm just going to do the other one. Whilst these signs adhere to my Fallen Angels beer barrels really firmly, I'm going to go and get myself an acrylic pen so I can write down what they're going to be drinking. I've got my black acrylic pen here. I'm just going to give it a little shake to make sure all the ink is nicely distributed over the nib. And acrylic pens are brilliant because they're great for doing things like milestones, they're great for working on glass, they cover a whole manner of materials and you can get really creative with them. But I'm going to use them on my signs now. Now the first one I'm going to do, I thought about putting cider and then I thought, nah, these guys look like they love a good cocktail, but not just any cocktail. I reckon they like a cheeky Vimto. So that's what this one's going to be carrying. So I'm just going to write on here. And it doesn't have to be neat because you've got to remember that this is meant to be their handwriting. So I'm just going to go with, and I might do caps as well. There we go. So I'm going to let that one dry. Cheeky Vimto. Now this one, I want to go with cider, but I'm from Bristol, and in Bristol there is an infamous bar called the Apple where they just sell cider, and one of the ciders they sell is called Tractor Fuel and it's like 8%, and I reckon these guys want to have a really good time at the festival, so I think I'm going to give them some Tractor Fuel as well. So I'm just going to write that on here. So they've got their drinks ready to go. The next thing I'm going to do is, whilst my bubblegum and hat are drying in the garage with the spray paint, I'm going to add some gold leaf to their wings. So I'm just going to grab my gold leaf now. I've already put the adhesive onto the wings, so it's just a case of adding that gold leaf. So I'm going to take a section. Now I was informed by someone that you're meant to add the paper on with the gold leaf, but that's too simple. I like to make life difficult for myself. I don't know why, but I just like to make things more complicated than they need to be. But I will take heed of their advice, and I will do it on this occasion, just to see if it does make a difference to the ease of attaching it. So I'm just going to do it on the inside as well a little bit. This is when I find out where I've accidentally put glue that I don't want glue, because if you accidentally get any of the adhesive glue anywhere, you do find that it basically sticks to everything. So I have tried to be careful, but knowing my luck, I probably will have some bits of gold that I don't want. But that's fine, because it's all going to look lovely at the end. I'm not too worried if it doesn't look absolutely perfect. I think the nice thing about creating your own crafts is that there is imperfections in it, and it's not listening to that inner critic thinking, oh God, this looks really rubbish, it doesn't look like the tutorial. I think it's all about thinking, well, yeah, do you know what? I did make a mistake there, but actually, who cares? And I think it actually quite works. I think my mistake works, and it's a memory, it's a part of my learning process in learning this new craft. So I'm just going to give this a really good brush, because you really want to brush the gold leaf into the figure to get it nicely adhered. do you know what? It doesn't matter if it's not perfect. It really doesn't matter. I think we're so focused in life on trying to replicate what someone else has in terms of not just art, but things like people's weight, how people look, hairstyles, all that kind of stuff. But I think it's just really important to be individual, even when you're doing some crafting. So if this doesn't turn out as you want it, don't worry about it. Who cares? It's yours. You made it. It's your signature. It's your personality that's gone into it. And I think that's one of the things that we forget. We're all individual people at the end of the day, and we all bring something different to the table, and we all have something really positive to offer. So don't worry if something doesn't turn out how you want it to. Tell your inner critic to just go and do one and just really enjoy the making process, because it's really cathartic. The gold leaf has now been added, so the final thing to do is to add their props to make them look like proper festival goers. So I've just been out into the garage, and I'm not going to lie to you, the weather is disgusting outside, so I was kind of protecting them as I was bringing them inside so they didn't get wet. So we've got the bubble gum, and we've got the sparkly cowboy hat as well. Very Barbie, very on trend at the moment. So I'm gonna super glue these onto my angels, and then they will be complete and ready for some really beautiful candles. So let's get them added. So I'm gonna add the hat first. I'm just gonna work out where I want it to go. That looks pretty good. I'm just gonna add some of my favorite glue around the rim. Add it on. I'm going to add it on a bit of an angle so he looks a little bit jaunty. I'm just going to hold that in place. Oh, whoops. I'm just going to hold that in place for a little bit until it adheres to the head. There we go. One down, one to go. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is add the bubble gum. Now, one thing I forgot to mention earlier was when I made the Fimo, I actually pressed it against the mouth of the angel to create a bit of an indentation so that when it came out of the oven and it was all finished, it sits really nicely and flush against the mouth. So I'm going to add some glue now to that area where I created that indentation, just to give a bit of extra support. I'm just going to hold this for a little while because it's quite heavy. So I want to make sure that it's nicely adhered to the statue before I let go, otherwise it will get a bit messy. Ooh, stick it. Stick it real good. Ooh, stick it, yeah. Stick it real good. Now, I don't want to blow my own trumpet, but how good do they look? I'm so pleased with how they've turned out. They look great. And I'm so pleased with how the colours have worked together. And do you know what? I'm glad that I went with satin for that one, the satin finish, because actually the glossiness of the bubble really stands out against the mateness of the angel. So I think it works really well, personally anyway. But I think, yeah, for £10, you can't go wrong. And so much more unique and bespoke compared to the 60 quid I could have spent on the other candle holders up the road. So please give this a go because it's great fun and the end result is so satisfying. So I really hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. I will see you again tomorrow. Until then, have an amazing day. Take care. Bye.